This morning, a new Supreme Court case is moving forward that could have implications for LGBTQ plus people all across the country. Yesterday, the justices agreed to take up a challenge to a Colorado law that bans so-called conversion therapy. This is therapy aimed at young people who are questioning their sexual orientation or gender identity. The practice is highly controversial and unproven. It pushes gay, lesbian, and bisexual minors to change their sexual orientation. Therapy also tries to get trans children to identify as the gender they were assigned at birth. Many leading medical and mental health experts say that conversion therapy is harmful and ineffective.
This challenge to Colorado's law comes after a Christian therapist appealed to the Supreme Court, arguing that the ban violates her freedom of speech. Colorado officials say the law is meant to regulate conduct, not speech. Both a federal judge and a Denver-based appeals court ruled in favor of the state. Now, justices are set to hear this case in their next term, which begins in October.
NBC News senior Supreme Court reporter Lawrence Hurley joins us now to break down the case. Legal analyst Angela Cenedella is here to explain its potential impacts. Good morning to both of you. Lawrence, let's start with you. Walk us through the details of this appeal from the Colorado-based therapist. What's the argument state officials are making?
Right. So as you indicated earlier, this is a fight between free speech and conduct. Question is the court's going to be dealing with is like, are these kind of laws, as you said, all over the country, do they regulate speech or do they regulate conduct? And the state obviously is saying this is kind of like the type of rules that they have for all kinds of medical practitioners and therapists, and they have a right to regulate these people, and any sort of imposition on free speech is kind of incidental to the overall focus of the law, which is to protect young people and health and welfare of people in the state. Whereas the therapist here, Kaylee Childs, it's worth noting, is represented by a conservative Christian group called Alliance Defending Freedom, which has had a lot of success bringing cases at the Supreme Court, which has a conservative 6-3 majority, bringing up these kind of free speech claims on behalf of conservative Christians. And they've had, some success, some big cases, including the one you may remember about a web designer who didn't want to work for gay couples who were getting married because she didn't want to design the websites, and she saw that as a free speech violation. So these are the issues that the court's going to be dealing with when it hears these arguments.
Angela, let's bring you in here. What would attorneys for the Colorado therapists have to prove in order to get a ruling in their favor?
Okay, so the context here is that states generally have broad discretion to regulate the medical treatment within the boundaries of their state. So that is the state's main argument here. And it's very important to note, as we did in the lead up here, that this is a treatment that has largely been proven to be harmful, right? Discredited. So the state is saying we have a right to regulate what is harmful medical treatment within our state. So then what her lawyer would have to prove here is that this is not at all about medical conduct. It's purely about speech. And then beyond that, that it is a content-based restriction, that the government is trying to actually restrict what she wants to say and the type of speech that she is trying to say, at which point then it would implicate strict scrutiny, and then that's how the Supreme Court would review it.
So, Lawrence, the Supreme Court has refused on several occasions to take up similar challenges to conversion therapy bans in other states. Many states have banned it. What's then different about this case that makes it so the court actually said, yeah, we'll hear this one?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question because about just a little over a year ago, the court declined to hear a similar case from Washington state, which meant that ban remained in effect. And at that time, 3 of the conservative justices objected, saying the court should have taken up the case. And there are 4 votes are needed out of the 9 for the court to take up a case. And so obviously they were a vote short on that occasion. And not a whole lot has changed on the ground since then. But obviously, at least one other justice has now said they're willing to hear the case. We don't know who, because the court didn't say. But when the court actually hears arguments in the case, we'll get a better idea of whether, there's actually a majority that is buying into this free speech argument, or, whether they just felt like they needed to get up and decide this case now because it has been brewing for a while.
We're mentioning how there's laws like this all over the country. It's actually about 20 states with similar laws. What would a ruling here mean for those other states besides Colorado?
Well, it would really reduce a state's ability to regulate what an individual therapist would want or not do with their own patients. So what that means is that all of these other states then would likely have similar challenges, similar lawsuits regarding the constitutionality of their bans. And those then also would be required to make allowances for Christian therapists or really any therapist in a case like this. But the implications, I think, go even beyond just conversion therapy. It would really go to whether or not states generally have the ability to regulate medical treatment. And if we look at all of the cases right now regarding transgender youth, even cases regarding puberty blockers and hormone treatment, they all intersect at medical treatment and freedom of speech. So the implications would be significant.
More on this definitely later this year. Lawrence and Angela, thank you both. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.